Hello, I'm Savannah, and me and my friend Lisa are going to talk about
Hello.
closed form in poetry.
What is form? The means by which a literal work conveys its meaning. Traditionally, form refers to the way an artist expresses meaning rather than the content of that meaning, but it's now commonplace to note that form and content are inextricably related. Form, therefore, is more than the external framework of a literary work. It includes the totally ways in which it unfolds and coheres a structure of meaning and expression.
Open versus closed form. In open form, a poet seeks to discover a fresh and individual arrangement. In open form used to be called free verse, and this is what makes open form different from closed because it has free form, rhyme, and rhythm. In open form, it gives off positivity, especially with the classics. Some examples are When Lilacs Last and Dooryard Bloomed, an elegy for Abraham Lincoln. And with the closed form, it is known as the fixed form, and it follows all the patterns, lines, meters, and rhymes and stanzas, and it strives for a perfect structure and rhythm to the poem. Poets will depart from the symmetrical pattern, and blank verse is the most popular form of the closed form format, and it focuses more on the meaning of the poem than anything else.
Where was it used the most? Closed form is used mostly, in poems. Usually in poems that have a final click. These are bigger texts, unlike open form, which are quick and short, to the point as well as whimsical. It is in many ways English playwrights and longer text. It is also often used by poets who are striving for perfection. And some examples of where it is used is in Shakespearean rites and in the Odyssey, in a form of an.
But what does it do to poems? What they do to poems are that they make the poem more symmetrical and straightforward. They give rhymes as well, lodging the words into place. They tend to make the poem more regular and standard looking, usually causes the poem to fall into a rhyme scheme. For example, an ABA, ABA, CDCD, CDC, and so on. This is more structured than open form, as it's like a building while open form is more like the wind. Because open is more out there, while closed is more formed like a building. It's so structured and stronger.
Formal patterns. Formal verse is a name given to a rhyme poetry that uses strict meter, a regular pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables. Most poetry consistently uses rhyme, also uses meter, and is therefore formal verse. Formal verse is distinct from blank verse, poetry with a meter but no rhyme. A free verse, poetry without a meter or rhyme. While formal verse was very popular before the 20th century, it has fallen out of fashion, sadly, among poets since the 1940s and 50s. Some textual examples of formal patterns are Random Thoughts of Life, Love, and Loss by Roseanne McHenry Kimball, and Worlds in Passing, a selection of formal verse by E.M. Score.
Blank verse is one of the most popular format, and it's best known as the one-line pattern for poems. This pattern is not a stanza, but is an unrimmed limbic pentameter, a verse that doesn't really rhyme. And an example of blank verse is The Mending Walls by Robert Frost, Hamlet by William Shakespeare, and there's many more. For example, from Hamlet, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Syllabic verse. Syllabic verse is the poet establishing a pattern or a certain number of syllables to a line. Poets use this form to discover less conventional rhythms, and it can contain rhymes or no rhymes. Stress, quantity, or tone play a minor role in the structure, or none at all in verse structure. Examples are Thomas Nash's I Do's, Farewell Earth Bliss, and Dylan Thomas's poem In October. As you can see on the bottom right, that's an.
And we have the couplet. A couplet is a two-line stanza, usually rimmed. Its lines often tend to be equal in length, whether short and long. Examples of a couplet is blow and snow. And another one titled Math, 4 ears, 2 heads, 2 tails, 8 feet. How many cats have come to eat? They're very short and tend to rhyme at the end, like feet, eat, blow, and snow.
Acrostics. A acrostic is a poem, word puzzle, or other composition in which certain letters in each line form a word or words. These can make the poem have a secret message or underlying meaning to it. Here are some examples of that: Torah, the Bible, the Book of Job, and some other religious works. Even if these are usually hidden, you should be on constant lookout for them in poems, especially in the religious figures of books. Now, some of the famous works are Elizabeth, an acrostic by Edgar Allan Poe. And look, see, I even did one myself. I spelled it Athens. As you can see on the left, they're all bold and underlined.
And lastly, we have epigrams. Epigram is a form of a short poem ending in a witty or indigenous turn of thought to which the rest of the composition is intended to lead up. It usually ends with a sort of plot twist or an unexpected quip, one-liner, or stinger in the final line, or even as the last word of the poem. They aren't always poems, and they can be witty and have a clever satirical statement or quote made by someone. An example of an epigrams are Sonnet 76 by William Shakespeare, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and many more. They're kind of like almost joking mannerisms. Some can be seen as very funny or surprising most of the time.
Thank you for, well, sticking to the end of this.